Boker Tov, I'm Stephen Ben Noon. You are watching Israeli News Live, a prophetic report, a special prophetic report on the Iranian deal that has been announced just yesterday regarding the sanctions being lifted from Iran and how the world is applauding this momentous decision as it is brought out by world leaders. It is hailed as a historic agreement. And of course, the only nation in the world that does not see this as a historic agreement is Israel. And but clearly, we know that in one way it is historic. It is prophetically historic. And in this particular segment, I'm going to share with you, because now we understand from the prophetic aspect at Israeli News Live just how serious this deal really is. We now understand what it will take to fulfill certain biblical prophecies, and not knowing beforehand that the Iranian negotiations would be the very catalyst that would fulfill biblical prophecy, that would actually bring these things into place. But clearly it is this deal that has been signed with Iran that will, of course, it's still got a little bit more to go. They got to iron out some more details. It will be completed. And I do believe that you will see Israel. Now, Israel, when I say this, Israel will attack Iran. I can't say when that will actually happen, but you have to understand God is the one in control of this, and the Lord knows when they must attack Iran in order to fulfill prophecy. Let's first look at the news regarding this, and then we're going to take you directly into how this is it is the thing to watch for, so that you will understand how biblical prophecy will unfold as a result. Now, CNN News, I'm just going to read to you some highlights of some of these articles here. We'll be looking at CNN, ALJazeera, as well as Israeli National News, Arutz Shiva's report. CNN, after a marathon stretch of late-night negotiations in Lausanne, Switzerland, diplomats announced they'd come up with the framework for an agreement that's been months in the making. Iran would reduce its stockpile of low-enriched uranium by 98%, significantly scaling back its number of installed centrifuges. Now, in another report, I believe they said only by 2/3. That's not 98%. According to the plan, in exchange, the United States and the European Union would lift sanctions that have crippled the country's economy. Like, for example, to buy a car in Iran now is 3 times the normal amount. It is a good deal, a deal that meets our core objectives, U.S. President Barack Obama said in a speech from the White House Rose Garden. This framework would cut off every pathway that Iran could take to develop nuclear weapon. This deal would include strict verification measures to make sure Iran complies, he said. If Iran cheats, Obama said, the world will know it. Now, we reported here on Israeli News Live a little while back, because of actually having an inside contact to one of Iran's scientists that went and defected to America, that Iran already possesses 3 nuclear bombs. So therefore, for Iran, it's kind of funny that they're doing this. Yes, no, we promise we won't develop any nuclear weapons. They don't have to develop them. They already have them. But let's, real quick, I want you to hear a little bit of the speech from Barack Obama. Listen to this.
Been signed. Between now and the end of June, the negotiators will continue to work through the details of how this framework will be fully implemented, and those details matter. If there is backsliding on the part of the Iranians, if the verification and inspection mechanisms don't meet the specifications of our nuclear and security experts, there will be no deal. But if we can get this done, and Iran follows through on the framework that our negotiators agreed to, we will be able to resolve one of the greatest threats to our security, and to do so peacefully.
It is quite disturbing in one way, because I'm looking this from a prophetic standpoint there. Also on ALJazeera, they reported that Obama hails historic Iran nuclear deal is a report that they made there. They state the United States, Iran, and 5 other world powers have sealed a breakthrough framework agreement outlining limits on Iran's nuclear program to keep it from being able to produce atomic weapons. Reading out a joint statement on Thursday evening, EU Foreign Policy Chief Federica Mogherini said a decisive step has been achieved. U.S. domestic debate on Iran deal. This is a crucial decision laying the agreed basis for the final text of joint comprehensive plan of action, she stated. We can now start drafting the text and annexes, said Mogherini, who has acted as a coordinator for the six powers, Britain, China, France, Germany, Russia, and the United States. The U.S., Iran each held the efforts of their diplomats over 8 days of a marathon talks in the Swiss city of Lausanne. Speaking at the White House, U.S. President Barack Obama called it a good deal. That would address concerns about Iran's nuclear ambitions. The U.S. President said that the U.S. and its allies had reached a historic understanding with Iran. The Iranian Foreign Minister Mohammad Javad Zarif called it a win-win outcome. Well, no doubt, because they already have the bomb. So it is a win-win for them. And how could it be a win-win unless they already have a bomb? The Islamic Republic has been promised an end to years of crippling economic sanctions. Now, clearly throughout the entire world, I have seen article after article, whether it be from the Arabic world or whether it be from a different world there, whether Russia, the U.S., Europe, South America, everywhere that you see, they're hailing this as a historic agreement. The entire world looks at this as a peace and security type of deal. Now, we realize we have the issue going on with Ukraine, between the tensions between the United States and Russia. And I'm really wondering how that all plays into this. But let's stay focused on Iran. And now I want to take you next to the Israeli news here. It says the Israeli cabinet unanimously rejects the Iran framework deal. So now we see that Israel alone against an entire world has rejected this. Keep in mind, when Netanyahu was threatening just recently to send warplanes in to bomb the nuclear facilities in Iran, Kuwaiti News reported that Barack Obama said that he would shoot down any Israeli planes that tried to attempt this. Keep that thought in the back of your mind here. Let's look at what they say here in Israel. A 3-hour-long meeting of Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and his cabinet Friday ended with a unanimous rejection of the framework deal with Iran over its nuclear program. The deal, announced yesterday at a joint conference in Switzerland and widely celebrated as a victory in Iran, was quickly lauded by U.S. President Barack Obama as a historic agreement. This is on Israel National News now. And by the way, these are posted on our Facebook page, our news page, Israeli News Live, on Facebook, so you can follow this up there as well. I am convinced that if this framework leads to a final comprehensive deal, it will make our country, our allies, and our world safer, Obama asserted, insisting that despite criticism, the agreement would effectively cut off any option for Iran to build a nuclear bomb. He says, but despite Obama's claim that there was no daylight between the U.S. Commitment to Israel's security and the framework deal, Israel's officials heavily criticize it as a historic mistake. But let me say this to my Jewish brothers and sisters at home. This is actually what's going to bring about fulfillment of prophecy. So nonetheless, the deal is part of it. It is the catalyst that will push prophetic fulfillment in Israel, what we see in Joel, Zephaniah, and Zechariah. We'll be looking at those scriptures in a moment. And of course, Israel striking Iran actually has to happen, or at least the attempt to do so will have to happen. We'll get into that. It is a bad framework which will lead to a bad and dangerous agreement. The framework gives international legitimacy to Iran's nuclear program, the only aim of which is to produce a nuclear bomb, they added. During a conversation with Obama following the announcement, Netanyahu voiced his own strong objections to the deal, branding it a threat to Israel's very survival. A deal based on this framework would threaten the survival of Israel, Netanyahu told Obama, according to the statement. Just 2 days ago, Iran said that the destruction of Israel is non-negotiable. We played that for you on the news the other night. And in these fateful days, Iran is accelerating the arming of its terror proxies to attack Israel, which is we see in Yemen, the takeover of Yemen, to cutting off the Gulf of Aqaba to Israel. Their access there, they're going to get control of that. They're also arming Hamas. They're arming Hezbollah out of Lebanon and as well in Syria. So they're building up all around Israel's borders, but Israel, this is not our major threat. To try to stop them is going to be the major threat, but it will also bring the God of Israel. It will bring back God's divine name to our people. It'll be the time of the restoration of His divine name. It'll bring the two witnesses, the two olive trees that are on either side of the golden lampstand. It will bring Eliyahu, Elijah the prophet, on the scene. It's going to really cause major prophetic impacts, this deal is. It's, like I said, the catalyst, the beginning of it. In another article, it says, Israel should seriously consider striking Iran, expert says. And this is the final article I want to bring to your attention. Israel should seriously consider a military strike on Iran's nuclear facilities. Again, this article is on Aruch Shiva, Israel National News. It says, in the aftermath of the framework deal announced between Tehran and Western powers Thursday, a leader defense and security expert said, speaking to Aruch Shiva Friday, Professor Ephraim Inbar, who heads the Benjamin Sadat Center for Strategic Studies, said that the deal had realized Israel's worst fears by leaving Iran's nuclear program essentially intact. He goes on, the Islamic Republic's nuclear program has been granted legitimacy by the agreement which still allowed it to continue enriching uranium and maintaining a reactor capable of producing enriched plutonium. He said, and that's what worries Israel, that they, Iran, will be able within a short time framework to reach a nuclear bomb. I hold the view that the only way to stop Iran in its journey to a nuclear bomb is through military means. Inbar maintains, suggesting that Israel needs to seriously consider striking a number of important nuclear facilities to head off the threat. Inbar went further, stating that Israel had made a serious mistake in not taking Iran's nuclear facilities until now. Now, the deal, however bad, was struck. A military strike would be far more difficult. He posted, nevertheless, practically speaking, Israel was left with little choice short of accepting a nuclear-armed Iran. As long as there was no deal, it was easier for Israel to strike. They should have carried out a strike 2 years ago. He said, this is not an easy decision, but it's what's needed to be done. Now, notice this last quotation that Inbar actually says here. This is the catalyst that I'm speaking about. He says here in the final part that I quoted here from the article, Israel should seriously consider striking Iran, experts say on IsraelNationalNews.com. As long as there was no deal, it was easier for Israel to strike. That's true. They should have carried out the strike 2 years ago, he said. This is not an easy decision, but it is what's needed to be done. That's exactly right. Now, there has to be a catalyst, something that will change the world's view, that will cause all the nations of the world to come against Israel, to literally gather against Israel in a battle. We can clearly see that Israel has already been facing criticism from the entire world. Everyone criticizes Israel because it's from where it's trying to survive. Clearly, the United States, acting as the Vatican's force to create civil unrest, strife between its Arab nations, has been to topple the country to begin with, because Israel has not fully embraced Rome's right to be over Israel. And Rome is not satisfied with only getting Mount Zion. Clearly, this is not something that the Pope of Rome is just going to be satisfied with, okay, we got Mount Zion and that's it. The Pope of Rome is wanting to fulfill biblical prophecy, thinking that he is God's representative on earth, and therefore it'll be fulfilled when he is there, and that all nations will come into Israel because he is the new one world leader of the one world government, and also the one world religious leader as well. But this is being hindered because even though Israel has made concessions to Rome, they've given them Mount Zion, they give away the tomb of David in order to try to appease the Pope of Rome, but they've not fully embraced Rome, and so therefore Rome continues to incite violence between the Palestinians, the Hezbollah from the north out of Lebanon, and as well as with Hamas to cause terror and attacks in Israel. Now, but the deal with Iran is the catalyst. This is what will bring the world against Israel. Let me first share with you 3 different prophetic insights so that you understand how this works. In Joel chapter 3, verse 2, it says, let me read verse 1, "For behold, in those days and in that time when I shall bring again the captivity of Judah and Jerusalem, I will also gather all nations and will bring them down into the valley of Jehoshaphat. And I will plead with them there for my people and for my heritage Israel, whom they have scattered among the nations and parted my land. And they have cast lots for my people and given a boy for a harlot and sold a girl for wine that they might drink." Now, just again, I want to bring you to another prophetic insight here, and that was from Joel. Let's go also to Zephaniah. And with Zephaniah, we're going to chapter 3, verse 8. And let's read this one here as well. "Therefore wait ye upon me, saith the Lord, until the day that I rise up to the prey. For my determination is to gather the nations, that I may assemble the kingdoms, to pour upon them mine indignation. Even all my fierce anger, for all the earth shall be devoured with the fire of my jealousy." Let's look at verse 9 though, for my Jewish brothers and sisters as well, to know what happens during this time. Now we see clearly that God is gathering the nations against Israel for a battle. "For then I will turn to the people a pure language, that they may all call upon the name of the Lord," Hashem, his divine name. We don't know how to say it. It's not Yahweh, but we don't know how to say it. He will return the divine language to be able to say this name at that time, to serve him with one consent. "From beyond the rivers of Ethiopia my supplants, even the daughter of my dispersed, shall bring mine offering. In that day shalt thou not be ashamed for all thy doings wherein thou hast transgressed against me." So therefore something happens that causes Israel to realize her sins. Also in Zechariah, we'll conclude with this one right here. This is in chapter 14, verse 2. Read 1 and 2. "Behold, the day of the Lord cometh, thy spoil shall be divided in the midst of thee." So they're going to divide it. "For I will gather all nations against Jerusalem to battle, and the city shall be taken, and the houses rifled, and the women ravished. And half of the city shall go forth into captivity, and the residue of the people shall not be cut off from the city. Then shall the Lord go forth and fight against those nations, as when he fought in the day of battle." Okay, so clearly, and we have the prophecy where God says to Moses he would do things greater than he did even in Egypt, miracles. So Moses will return with Eliyahu, Elijah the prophet. Moshe Eliyahu will come and God will bring judgment upon the earth. But what causes this to happen? We know the world is against Israel already as far as in political statements and things of that nature, but there must be something that drives the world to come with military might. And Iran deal is the one that does it. Why? Because the Iran deal seems to bring about a universal peace globally. And if they just can resolve the issue with Ukraine, with Russia and America, which no doubt they will, something's going to stop in there somewhere. It's going to look like a world peace is beginning to be established. And because of that, Israel, the only nation on earth that will stand against Iran, fearful of the threat, will try an attack on Iran. Now, whether or not they're successful or not, I don't know. They may be. And I can believe that they would be. But what will happen if Obama, according to Kuwaiti news, threatened to shoot down Israeli aircraft if they tried to go and attack Iran? It shows clearly that the United States is willing, under the Obama administration, to take and fight against Israel. What is this all about? All the nations of the earth militarily would turn against Israel. They're not, quote unquote, really trying to annihilate Israel from the outward point, but what they will try to bring to the world is that the only way to keep this peace going is to disarm Israel. And the only way they can disarm Israel is to have a military confrontation like they did in Iraq with Hussein when he was there. When he was in power in Iraq. The U.S. military goes in there not just to topple him, they couldn't topple him any other way, so they went in there with military force to topple Hussein, and they were successful. This is what the nations will do. They will take a United Nations force, they will come in against Israel to disarm the nation. It will be a bloodbath in doing so. Many of the Jewish people will be killed as a result, and this is how they will set up their they'll say it's biblical being fulfilled. Now Israel becomes a universal nation because they will justify their fight. They will say we're going to try to limit anything that we're doing, but we must go there. We must disarm Israel. That will be the fight that the United Nations forces that come against Israel. Easily Russia and Iran, all these nations would unite to do this because the whole purpose is to totally drive out the Jewish people. But of course they're going to say the Jews will be welcome to stay, but we have to remove the political situation in Israel in order to disarm them, to make the world safer. This is what the Pope will push for as well. He'll say the only way to maintain peace is to take Israel under international control. Then Jerusalem would become an international city. This is when God fights for Israel. After they come in, after they break the nation down, then we see clearly from Zechariah's prophecy in chapter 14, then God fights for Israel. And how does he do it? I believe this just like he did with Moses. God says, I have come to deliver my people. I have come down. But then he did it through Moses and Aaron. He did all these incredible things to defeat Pharaoh's army. But now God is dealing with a modern day army. No wonder why he says with Moses, I will do greater things with you than I ever did. And he talks about doing just incredible things with Moses when he returns. And that prophecy has never been fulfilled. It is a prophecy that must be fulfilled. Iran is a catalyst. Brothers, sisters, friends that watch our Israeli News Live, this prophetic segment, you are watching prophecy unfold before your eyes. This is what will cause the world to bring about a military attack on Israel. They will justify it, a United Nations force to come in to try to, as they will call it, to disarm the political, they'll call it a political regime. They will say that Netanyahu has become part of a political regime, and they will say we have to do this for the security. They'll even say they're doing it for the security of the Jewish people that want peace. It's going to be a big movement, and therefore many Jews will die as a result of this. But yet God will step in. I believe this is where your two witnesses come in on the scene. And clearly, the thing will totally be turned around. Very interesting to see how this is going to happen. I'm Stephen Ben-Nun with Israeli News Live, your prophetic segment. I hope I've made this clear. I hope you understand what I've said to you today. Because I know it's a lot of information. But I trust it's a blessing for you as well. Listen to it many times over. Share this with your friends. If it's your first time listening, subscribe. We're always dealing with all kinds of issues here at Israeli News Live, as well as Dunan Institute of Biblical Research. And we certainly hope it's a blessing. Shalom.